different search algorithm. Yeah. Really odd. Usually goes through YouTube, so we can go through this too. 1 second, everyone. We're just going to prepare a video that will help me tell stories, but I'm going to speak over it. Unfortunately, we had a bit of a glitch with getting the content here before right now, so we're just going to drag it up off the internet, which is why we love the internet. Okay, so I can go. So I can go first from there. Cool. All right,
So
and
we'll
then
just wait there, and we'll bring up the.
Cool. Oh, wow, you guys don't have my font. Oh, that's interesting. Okay. Another technical issue. I hadn't looked at this till now. The Museum of Contemporary Art has a really nice font. It's a beautiful font. It's kind of, it's got curved edges. It's rounded. It's affectionate. It brings people in. It's also not on this computer. So we have a mixture. We'll probably have a mixture of fonts throughout. Mostly, I talk to images, so it's not going to be a problem. Huh? I'm away in the I'm away in the manger. That's excellent. So my name is Keir WINESMITH. Before I started the MCA, I worked at the Special Broadcasting Service, the SBS. A little bit earlier, we heard that content is king, and then we were told that context is queen. So I'd like to argue that experience and the audience experience is the whole court, the jesters, the room you're in, the whole lot. We need to go beyond just thinking about content and just thinking about context, but thinking about the experience of the audience. And that's kind of what drives us. So that's what dragged me from SBS over to the MCA, because I was interested in exploring that. And I write a little bit about using technologies in museums. So if you go to that URL, you'll see my blog, which is kind of a little bit about some of these thoughts and theories, but extended to a whole bunch of topics beyond what we're going to talk about today. So I work at the Museum of Contemporary Art, which has recently reopened. I'll talk about that a little bit more in a second. If you walk out my office, there's a cafe. If you sit in the cafe where I now have all of my meetings, this is the view you get. But before you get jealous, I also, like the rest of you, work in cubicles in front of a computer, sitting at a desk. And for the most part, I work on experiences for our visitors. And these aren't visitors who are necessarily physical visitors. These could be virtual visitors as well. So those experiences, at least for what I do, extend beyond the digitization of works or the viewing of digital works. It extends to any way that you can interact with a museum that has some form of digital footprint. So that is our website, the 2 apps that we've got. That is our point of sale in our store. That is our online membership. That is our integrated e-commerce solution and our ticketing system. Because all of these, in my head, are part of the experience of going to the MCA or interacting with the MCA. And they should all talk to each other, and they should all be thought of, and you should give them the same focus you give to questions about the things that are internally focused. So we're very much a kind of visual organisation, and we're very much an audience-focused organisation. That's why when we rebuilt the existing building and added a new wing, we put the education facility and the cafe as the 2 prime spots in the new building. The cafe looks at the rest of Sydney and draws people in who we think might not otherwise go to a contemporary art institution. And the National Centre of Creative Learning, that we're calling, has the second best spot in the whole museum. So the students look out from their practical classroom or their digital classroom onto the city, onto the Quay, onto the Opera House, onto the Harbour Bridge, and they are given privilege because we think they're important. We had one of the architects who didn't win the bid to rebuild our museum. I overheard him talking to someone at a session where he said, "I can't believe they gave the best rooms in the whole new MCA to children." So we can, and we believe in that, and we think it's really important because their experiences are very important. So I'm going to talk about, I'm going to talk through examples because I find that easier to understand things, and I'm going to talk about the mobile space as a way of looking at what is next and how we work and why we do the things we do. But at the end, I'm going to ruminate a little bit on what I hope are slightly contentious issues about what the future might hold. So, excuse the formatting. I'm going to talk about 2 projects to set the scene and then reflect on them and how they affect each other. So the first project was last year for Primavera. So for Primavera, we had to move outside our building. The MCA was being rebuilt. There was no way to get to any of the galleries. They were work sites. So we've moved Primavera, which is our yearly showcase of young and emerging Australian artists, so under 35. We moved that into the rocks. We moved it all over the rocks. And our thinking was that because it's in a new space and because it's a new environment, it'd be useful to do something that has some wayfinding aspects. Some, you need to find those works. There's sort of bollards up. There's things that we handed out at the one little shop front we had. But once you've gone a few steps, especially if you're not really familiar with the rocks, you can easily lose your way to some of the more kind of hidden and investigative works. So we decided to make an app so that people could navigate their way, find the works and interact with them. There was also little competitions you could do, which actually turned out to be really popular, more popular than I expected. You can save favourites and go and follow them up, and it's got a map that talks a little bit about the work and how to get there and the works that are in the vicinity. We thought this was a good way of engaging with our potential visitors and experienced visitors. When I started, this is not long after I started, so this is like a snapshot of a particular work. So we've got the image of the work, where it is on the map, a little bit about it, and it goes on to talk about the artist. You can also see other works at that venue. What's interesting about this is when I started at the MCA, they wanted to do an app for Primavera. They thought it'd be really exciting. I argued really strongly that we shouldn't do an app. What you're looking at there is not an app. It's a website that looks like an app and acts like an app. If you go to that website on your browser, it looks like a blog. It is a blog. It acts like a blog. It tells you long-form background, longer texts, interviews with artists, that sort of thing. If you go on your smartphone, it goes straight to the app experience, an app-like experience. And if you go on what I call a dumb phone, so a BlackBerry, we have a BlackBerry experience, which is plain text and an encouragement to go and get a proper phone or come and talk to us. So we allow for anyone of any type of interaction. We go to you and we talk to you in the language that you want to be talked to. If you are standing at the front of the MCA and you load the website, it turns from www.pv11 to m.pv11 and gives you an app-like experience. So I had a look at the stats for how many people come to our website and what the percentage of mobile is, and it's about the same as the sort of global average, or the Australian average is sort of a little bit more than 25%. I had a look at the stats on the Primavera site, and it was a bit more than 50%. So we made the right choice because people were looking for wayfinding. They were, where do I get to this work? Where do I get to these people? And I would argue that extends beyond just simply this choice making that we've done. This extends to a lot of the choices you make. Do not make an app because your boss says we need an app. It's most probably unnecessary and expensive, and you can do a fantastic mobile site instead, which is another way of doing storytelling. The reason, some of the times, however, it's probably worth building an app. So I'm going to make sure, if there is sound, don't play it. Yeah, can you mute that? I'm going to talk over it. And, wait, I can just do it here. I have the power. Okay, so we rebuilt the MCA, and we took advantage of the rebuilding of the MCA to do some really novel changes. I rolled out a Wi-Fi system across the whole building, and I used that Wi-Fi system to do position tracking. So I know if you're using the MCA Insight app, I know where you are in the museum, and I know what artworks are in that room with you. Because we wanted to do that, and because we had a Wi-Fi partner who came on board with us and was interested in that experiment, we were able to do that almost free, incredibly cheaply, less than $10,000 to build location awareness into a new museum. The reason we could do that is because we were rebuilding the museum at the time, and we had a partner that helped us out. The only way we could get away with doing that was if we built a native app that ran both Android and iOS. So that's why we built a native app running Android and iOS, because it allowed us to tell this story. For the other things that we do, it's always about the story we want to tell. We want to have novel, investigative ways of engaging with our content, with our collection on the walls and with our collection that's not on the walls at the time. So this is a rare opportunity that you may not get in your institution. So be mindful of where you spend your money and what you spend your money on, because you're not always rebuilding it and you're not always rolling out technology, and you may not have the cash to do it. So don't hold yourselves back. Still look at how you can tell stories around your collection, but lead with those stories. My feeling is, don't lead with the overall process of, oh, I want an app, or oh, I must digitize. Lead with the stories that you want to tell your audience and the stories that are within your collection or within your history that are hidden. So we didn't put everything in the Google Art project. We only put 20 or so works, 30 works, because we had 30 works that we felt had really strong stories. So MCA Insight doesn't have every work in our collection on it. It has the works that we've chosen from our collection that are on our walls right now, including temporary exhibitions, that we have great stories for. Things where you can find and discover, where you can collect yourself, and where you can keep them. So I've got this thing that I've been working on with the head of education at the MCA, Heather Whiteley-Robertson, which is what I've sort of taken to calling the timeline of interpretation. That's only because I haven't come up with a good name for it. What this allows us to do is add another step in that timeline of interpretation. So at the very basic level, what we have in our building is wall labels. And we chose to go with and keep wall labels despite my trip to Mona, because not everyone wants to use a smartphone. Some people prefer a wall label. We need to be democratic and allow them to have that experience. So we have the wall label, which I consider as being, and this is not being rude, thin and shallow. So the wall label is a little bit of context, shortly written, really clear, to the point, but that's the beginning of your interpretation of that particular piece of content. Consider it the little document, the little description you might have on the online collection, or in the Google Art project, or in another resource. We then have wide and shallow, and that's the app. So the app has a little bit more text, it has interviews with the artist, but really short. It has installation images, but only a couple. Then we have wide and deep, and that's the website, and they all connect to each other. Wide and deep is 10-minute interviews with the artist, 15-minute interviews with others, ruminations on the works, other works by that artist, historical references. And then we have thin and really deep, and that's the catalogue where the curator goes off on a 20-page tangent about this one particular work. So whichever way you want to interact with the content, wherever that story is best told, we go to that place and we tell that story. So if that means we have, a quarter or a fifth or an eighth or a 15th or a 100th of our collection available online, but every bit you hit is a fantastic, compelling story, then that's a good choice, in my opinion. And that's a choice we've taken. So this is me mapping the heat map of one of the floors in the MCA, so I know where you are when you're in there, if you've got your phone on. Of course, I don't know who's there, I know someone's there. Which sort of brings me to sort of this question of the future and how you make choices. And again, content is only king if there's a good experience wrapped around it. And Primavera and MCA Insight are different approaches to the same question. How do we allow people to discover the content about our works and about our artists in a way that reflects how they want to experience and where they're looking for it, and the kind of format they're trying to do it. So one of the things that's key about MCA Insight is that you can collect works when you're in the building. We'll send you an email when you leave that has all the links and all the references to that richer information. So the installation time-lapse, the interview with the artist, wherever that strength is, wherever that depth is, we put it in there. So don't go ahead and just buy an app because you've been told to, and don't go ahead and digitize everything because you've got it. Find your stories and tell them with passion. Thanks. Oh yeah.